Hello. So we are going to be doing this live on Instagram as well. So hopefully that goes well. I think previously I had my phone on the computer, which apparently made a little bit of back noise. So I hope this is an improvement in terms of audio quality. Still kind of figuring out where exactly to look, but joys of technology, but super cool that I can do this in two places at the same time. Really cool. Okay, so I'm just going to have the comments open. If I get to your comment while we're live, awesome, but I might only get to it afterwards. So just give me a bit of time afterwards to do that. But I'd love for you to share your experiences, tell me what you're resonating with, and any questions or just comments, experiences, stories, anything. Let us know. I'd love to see who's joining, so say hi if you are joining live. If you're watching this as a replay, hashtag replay and say hi. And yeah, you can do that with all your comments and questions and stuff as well. Just hashtag replay and put in your comments and questions. So as most of you know, I am Sarah. I am a health and recovery coach for women clinicians. And what I really love to do is help women clinicians build a really fulfilling career that really just lights them up without the burnout. So focusing on their emotional health, their physical health, having that be one of the most important things that you design the way that you practice around, so that you're not just kind of, a second thought. It's built into the way that you design your career and build your career. Hello, Jill. Nice to have you. Let me know what you're resonating with and what your experiences have been with this kind of thing. And we're going to go into a little bit about introversion in general today, what it is, what it isn't. I'll go through a little bit of a quiz in a book that I have, Angel. And you can kind of identify whether you are actually an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert. Sometimes we're not sure, sometimes we know that we're a bit of a combination of the two. And then we'll go into a little bit about why people who are introverted tend to struggle with certain things a bit more than their extroverted counterparts. So why we might be more prone to burnout or feeling unfulfilled as an introverted clinician. So I'm just going to wait a minute or two. Jill, do you resonate with being an introvert, or you feel like you're more an extrovert, or you kind of somewhere in between? Let us know in the comments. And if you're joining, let us know as well. I'm like full introvert. I'll share the quiz with you guys now, but every single statement is like true, true, true. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is just like, what is it? Like, how do we know whether we are introverts or not, right? So Jill says somewhere in between. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it'll be clear after today. I'm hoping so. So what it isn't is maybe a helpful place to start. So people sometimes see it as synonymous with being shy, and shy is more an intense kind of anxiety around being disliked or humiliated, a kind of that kind of social interaction. There's something about it that is kind of fearful for them, or that they kind of dread. So that's shy. And it's not about not liking people. So that's just something I want to really clear up. Like when someone says they're introverted, it's not that they don't like people. So one of the things, the ways that they can describe this, and the way that makes a lot of sense to me as well, is thinking in terms of stimulation. So introverts are just very sensitive to a lot of stimulation. And if you think about people, they are a very rich source of stimulation. So much more than a book or, something that you're learning about, or sitting in your room watching something alone. Interacting with another human being is a very rich source of stimulation. And so that's why people may kind of link the two, that they think that because you are an introvert, you don't like being with people. It's just because people are very highly stimulating. So we need either less interaction with people than extroverts do, or we need to recover quite a lot more than extroverts do. So it's not about not liking people. It's not about being shy necessarily. And these things can overlap, of course, but they're not the same thing. So one of the things that, this is a book by Susan Cain, and it's called Quiet. And the subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And to me, when I read this book, it was the first time that I really explored what my strengths are as an introvert. Because I think in general, in society, we have what she calls an extrovert ideal, that in our society, being an extrovert is like the ideal and it's the standard, right? So everyone is encouraging you to speak more. Everyone's encouraging you to put yourself out there and be louder and, socialize more, make connections. So there's this ideal that we should all be more extroverted. And even the definition, I think in the Big Five, or about the personality traits, they define introversion as a lack of certain things. So lack of, desire to socialize, or I can't remember what the other ones were, but it kind of defines them from what you're lacking. And extrovert is kind of, the standard. So we're lacking in ways that extroverts aren't, essentially. And I think, hey, Leon. So I think that part of what we can start exploring is like, what are the strengths that we have as introverts? Leon, I don't think you resonate with being an introvert. But you're welcome to share with us your perspective on being an extrovert, and maybe you'll surprise us. So this is the first time that I really started exploring, like, what are my strengths as an introvert, and not just like, what am I lacking? How can I be more of an extrovert? So I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that I really want to encourage clinicians as well, that if you are an introvert, that you're not just trying to be more extroverted. And that's one of the things we'll chat about now. Okay. And then some people genuinely feel that being an introvert is incompatible with being a clinician. And I don't believe that that's true. I'll go through a few things today that I think we can look at to start shifting that and to make it more compatible with us. But there are also so many things about being a clinician that actually are very compatible with it, right? We do mostly one-on-one interactions. We don't really do groups. We don't really have to go to meetings unless you're networking, which we'll touch on as well. We don't have like open plan offices where you're like talking to colleagues all the time and being interrupted. So there are a lot of things about being a clinician that are actually very compatible with being an introvert. So I'm going to go through the little scale, and you can say whether this is true about you, whether this is false about you, and then you can kind of see how many of these you say it as true, and how many are false. If you had kind of an equal, you're probably an ambivert. If you're more towards true, then you're an introvert, and more towards false, then you're probably more extroverted. Okay, so the first one is, I prefer one-on-one conversations to group activities. True or false? And you guys are welcome to share your true or falses. I often prefer to express myself in writing. True or false? I enjoy solitude. True or false? False. I seem to care less than my peers about wealth, fame, and status. I dislike small talk, but I enjoy talking in depth about topics that matter to me. People tell me I'm a good listener. I'm not a big risk taker. I enjoy work that allows me to dive in with few interruptions. I like to celebrate birthdays on a small scale with only 1 or 2 friends or family members. People describe me as soft-spoken or mellow. I prefer not to show or discuss my work with others until it's finished. I dislike conflict. I do my best work on my own. I'd love to know which ones you're doing false to and which ones you're doing true to. We'll chat. Where was I? I tend to think before I speak. Did I do that one? No. I feel drained after being out and about, even if I enjoyed myself. I often let calls go to voicemail. Devlin will testify that I do that all the time. If I had to choose, I'd prefer a weekend with absolutely nothing to do than one with too many things scheduled. I don't enjoy multitasking. I can concentrate easily. And the last one, in classroom situations, I prefer lectures to seminars. I'll put this somewhere so that you guys have access to this. But maybe you get a little bit of a sense of whether you have more things true, more things false, or whether they're kind of in between. I don't think there's a single one of these I said false to. Maybe sometimes I enjoy multitasking. I don't know. Okay. Lectures and seminars, you mean that you hate both of those? Okay. So that maybe you've got a little bit of a sense of where you are on that scale. And we're mostly talking about introverts today, but you can apply that to being an ambivert or an extrovert. So these are some of the reasons you might be struggling as someone who is an introvert or has introverted tendencies. So the first one is kind of like I said earlier, you're just trying to be an extrovert. So that's like your solution, right? Like, I just have to be different. I have to be an extrovert. So you're not really changing anything else about being a clinician or your workplace or anything, but you're trying to make yourself be more extroverted. And this can work to a certain extent, which I'll talk about as well. But over the long term, it's not sustainable to just pretend to be extroverted, especially if it's very draining to us. And it can be less draining to us when we feel that it is in service of something that we are really passionate about or really find meaning in. So there are ways that even if we are expending extra emotional labor in order to act extroverted sometimes, if that's meaningful to us or in service of something that we believe in, we are more likely to have that be something that isn't draining us. So if you more have the narrative of like, I have to be extroverted, I have to act extroverted because who I am as an introvert is not right in this situation, or this is just incompatible, or I'm wrong for being introverted, and you're just trying to be an extrovert from that place, that will be incredibly draining and not sustainable. So again, think about like, what are your strengths as an introvert, and how can you enhance your strengths? How can you play into your strengths as an introvert, right? Introverts are deep thinkers. They have a rich inner world. They are usually a little bit more serious, more sensitive. They're more reserved. They tend to think about things before they speak about them. They're quite quiet. They prefer one-on-one. So if you're thinking about that, right? If you're thinking about, I want to do work where I'm deep diving into stuff, or where I'm having more time to just think or be by myself. Maybe I'm doing work that's only one-on-one, right? You are trying to play on your strengths as an introvert rather than how can I be more extroverted. So there are some ways that we can shift work, and depending on your situation, you might have more or less agency on like trying to change these things at this point. And you can look at all these ideas and think about like, where can I make changes? Where can I take shifts or have conversations with people in order to change this? But for example, if you think about people being very stimulating to introverts, right? The ideal situation is that we're seeing less patients, but for a longer period of time. So as an introvert, you might want to see less patients, but go more in depth with them, or just see less patients and do something else in the rest of the time. Maybe something that's more research orientated, or writing, or whatever it is, preparing lectures or workshops, seminars. So something that's either complementary to the work that is more towards your kind of introverted nature, or shifting the way that you see patients in order to do that. Something else that I think can be really helpful for introverts is to have an area that they really specialize in, because then you can really deep dive, you can learn everything about that thing and really specialize in that. And that can be helpful for introverts as well. So in general, instead of thinking about how can I be more extroverted, think about how can I play to my strengths as an introvert. I have so many patients who are like so grateful that I just don't make small talk all the time. And I also have patients that stopped seeing me because I never made small talk. Not never, I do make small talk sometimes, but I'm not, you know, that chatty, always talking kind of clinician, which some people really love. And other people are just so happy to be there with no like extra small talk. So you can find the work and the patients that really appreciate the way that you do things, and you don't have to always be trying to be an extrovert. So like I said about if it's meaningful to you, let's say, for example, I'm making small talk with someone. If my narrative is, oh, I have to make small talk and I hate making small talk and this is just part of my job and I have to do this, and why do people have to be so peoply, and you know, then I am going to feel resentful of that, and it's going to make me feel exhausted. Whereas if I'm thinking about doing small talk from the perspective of this is a way that I could build trust with my patient, this is how I can build rapport with my patient, and the more they trust me and the more we have a connection, the more they will trust me with some of the other stuff, and the more that we can actually build a really strong therapeutic relationship, right? So if it's in the service of something that's meaningful to me, I'm less likely to be drained by that. Sometimes people will do things like public speaking or, you know, workshops or other kind of group settings because they really want to get whatever their specialization, their message, whatever, they want to spread that to other people. And if that's really meaningful to them, they might act more extroverted in order to do that. A similar thing is like if you enjoy talking about a certain thing that you're not necessarily talking about a lot in your practice, you can start, this is an example, like if I am studying something, I am so involved in it, like I'm so excited about it and I'm learning and I'm diving into this material. But when I'm with a patient, I'm obviously not talking about all of that because they don't want to know all the nuance and all the like research and all that kind of stuff. They want to know the practical stuff. And if I'm going like, oh, well, now I can't be fulfilled because I can't talk about what I love talking about, I'm not going to feel fulfilled. Whereas if I see it as like, I'm going to learn the skills of talking to people in a way that they understand without trying to like go into the deep dive and the nuance and whatever, simple language, clear, direct, I'm going to learn how to do that as an extrovert would do more easily. I'm going to learn to do that because that's very meaningful. That is the way that I actually can make an impact on the patient's life. If I'm just sitting at home studying all day, I'm not really making an impact on someone's life, right? So if it's meaningful to you, you can act more extroverted without it being draining, but obviously to a limited extent, right? You can't completely fake who you are all the time without that being very draining. Okay, so the two other reasons why I find introverts struggling is they don't have enough recovery or restoration time. So just think about the fact that if you are an introvert and it means that you are very easily overstimulated by the world, you might need more rest time, more downtime, more solitude, more time not making small talk, more time alone reading a book, or, you know, in your break, being alone rather than talking to other people, right? You might need more of that stuff than an extrovert might, which might, you know, require you to set certain boundaries. It might require you to be a little bit different from the norm at work or whatever it is, right? But you need to honor the fact that we are easily overstimulated, and we need to build in recovery and rest and breaks from that stimulation. So that's the second one. And then the last one is a little bit of a tricky one to identify sometimes, or maybe to admit, but maybe you just don't find your work that meaningful or interesting. So one of the things that really kind of like stopped me in my tracks with this in this book is she was saying that introverts are less able to pretend they care about something that they don't. So when we are talking the whole day about things that we don't really care that much about, or that we're not that interested in, it takes a lot of energy and more than someone who's extroverted. And she was saying the plus side to this is that we might be more likely to be almost in some sense driven or forced to make a change when our work is not meaningful or interesting to us. So we're less able to fake interest in something. And then again, on the strength side, when we do find something that we really are interested and passionate about, we are unstoppable because we just like zone in and hyper focus and deep dive into that. But then we struggle on the other side of that to be talking about stuff that we maybe don't have that much interest in or find incredibly meaningful. So again, with small talk, again, you can relate it back to that. Like, how can you find meaning in that, if that's something that you want to do more of? How can you increase the areas of your work as a clinician? Like, how can you do more of the stuff that you really are naturally interested in? Like, take notice of which patients are really energizing for you. When are you feeling quite excited and energized and feel like your work is meaningful or interesting, right? Notice where those trends are. And it may mean that you need to make a change in your work. It might mean that you need a whole career shift, you know, whatever it is. Like, this is something that I realized for myself, is that when I'm coaching, I'm always talking about the stuff that I really find so incredibly fascinating. And that's what I'm doing all the time, right? Which feels so different to, as a clinician, the times that I'm really excited and, like I said, it's like when I'm learning, right? Which kind of confused me a little bit, because I was like, when I'm learning about this stuff, I'm really excited. But then when I'm, you know, just doing the everyday like clinician work, I'm less excited about it, right? So either taking what I do find really interesting and meaningful and bringing that into my work as a clinician more, or using it as a sign that maybe this is something that I need to explore. Maybe this is prompting me to make a change in this area of my life. Okay, so those are the 3 things we chatted about. Trying to be more extroverted versus looking at your strengths and emphasizing that, not getting enough recovery or restoration in the way that you need it as an introvert, and then, you know, maybe not finding your work as meaningful or interesting as you'd like. So we can talk about making these, you know, making changes in these areas, but think about like one of the areas is, or one of the aspects to this is just the knowledge and perspective. So hopefully that helps in any way, like to just know about these things. This can prompt you to like look at different areas of your life, but just realize that a lot of the things that we talk about and things that you want to do require certain things in order to make the behavior change, right? So for example, if you have to set a boundary with your partner when you get home, like, please don't talk to me for an hour or something, right? That conversation requires you to be comfortable with having that difficult conversation, if that is difficult for you, right? So setting boundaries, having hard conversations. Sometimes we feel guilty about admitting that we're maybe not that excited about something or not that interested, or we feel guilt about like we think that if we're not enjoying work itself, it means that we don't care about our patients, right? And that is not true. Maybe you feel pressure to act like the people, burrito time after work, yes, exactly. Couch burrito. Maybe you just feel like a certain pressure to act extroverted, or if the people around you are very extroverted, you kind of want to shift yourself in order to fit in a bit more, right? We need to be able to navigate the discomfort of standing out. So just as an extra kind of, just being sort of gentle with yourself in that regard, that just knowing the stuff doesn't mean that you suddenly are able to do all of this. But it can be a point of exploration. And then you can also start exploring, like, what is the resistance to actually doing this? What would I find difficult about this? What is the like about like setting boundaries or, you know, standing out? So if you want support in this, let me know. I am happy to send you the quiz as well, and just any support that you need around being an introvert as a clinician or ambivert. Leon, you're also allowed if you're an extrovert. So yeah. If you would like to look at coaching next year, send me a note as well, a DM or something, and I will send you the link to sign up for the waiting list. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to open a few spots in January. Starting January, it's a 3 months of coaching. But while you are on that waiting list, I'm going to be giving you email coaching. So you can literally send me anything that you're struggling with, questions that you have, a situation in practice that you were like, oh, this happened and I felt this way, and like, how do I stop being, you know, triggered by this? Or how do I have this conversation with my boss or with my partner, whatever it is. And each week I send out a little email as well, just for something that you can think about, or a little perspective shift, or a little theme that you can explore or journal about, or that kind of thing. So thank you for joining me live. Thanks, Jill and Leon, for your interaction and joining me. It was cool to see you. And I think, Leon, you requested to join live, but I'm assuming that you didn't want to join live with me. Cool. Have a good Sunday, guys. Bye.